In a time when America was shaking off the dust of war and charging into a new era of industry, ambition, and invention, a machine quietly rolled off the assembly line that would change the face of transportation forever. It wasn't a flashy sports car, nor a symbol of high society. It was a truck. Simple, rugged, and determined. The year was 1918, and the Chevrolet one-ton had arrived. This was no ordinary vehicle. It was the first purpose-built truck ever produced by Chevrolet, and it came into the world with a mission, not to impress with speed or luxury, but to work, to haul, to endure. In many ways, this truck mirrored the spirit of America itself during the Roaring Twenties, tough, enterprising, and built to last. While jazz blared through smoky dance halls and flappers danced their way into the social revolution, the Chevy one-ton hummed along dusty backroads, farm lanes, and bustling city streets, delivering goods, supporting industries, and quietly powering the nation's momentum. It wasn't the loudest voice in the room, but it was the muscle behind the movement. The Chevrolet one-ton debuted at a turning point in history. World War I was coming to a close, and the United States was preparing to flex its industrial might. The economy was shifting, cities were expanding, and the demand for reliable, versatile transportation was skyrocketing. This was no longer an age where horses and wagons could keep up with the pace of change. Businesses needed something more durable, more dependable, something mechanized. And Chevrolet answered that call with precision. What they unveiled wasn't just a vehicle, it was a revolution on wheels. The one-ton truck featured a beefy 224 cubic inch OHV four-cylinder engine producing 37 horsepower. Not much by modern standards, but more than enough to handle the heavy lifting back then. It came with a rolling chassis that allowed customers to customize it according to their needs, whether that meant fitting a flatbed, a cargo box, or even adapting it for farming equipment. That flexibility was groundbreaking. Suddenly, the American worker had a machine that could keep pace with their ambition, a tool that was as adaptable as it was durable. Visually, the 1918 Chevy one-ton was the very definition of function over form. It didn't care about curves or chrome. It was built to perform, and every bolt, every weld, and every inch of steel reinforced that purpose. The body was straightforward, boxy, and strong. It sat on solid rubber tires, built to resist the brutal conditions of early 20th century roads. Suspension was firm but reliable, designed to keep the truck moving through potholes, mud, and gravel. The transmission was a 3-speed manual, built to offer the kind of mechanical confidence that made a man feel in control. And the brakes? Mechanical, of course, rugged, requiring a steady foot and a strong leg, but dependable. Everything about this truck screamed determination. It was a truck made not to be admired in a showroom, but to be used, abused, and still keep going. It was the kind of vehicle that didn't ask for attention but earned respect. Beyond the specs and steel, the 1918 one-ton Chevy carried something more intangible, a kind of symbolic weight. It represented a shift in the way America thought about transportation and labor. Until that point, trucks were essentially modified cars, retrofitted for heavier loads. But Chevrolet flipped the script. With the one-ton, they said, let's build something from the ground up that's designed for the job. That single design philosophy would lay the groundwork for the modern pickup truck. Today, pickup trucks are symbols of strength, independence, and utility. But in 1918, they were a new concept. And the Chevy one-ton? It was the seed from which all that would grow. Farmers used it to carry produce to market. Small business owners relied on it to move inventory and materials. Municipalities integrated it into public works projects. It was a truck for every man, in every town, doing every job. Culturally, the truck became a part of the American fabric. It didn't take long before the one-ton found itself embedded in the daily rhythm of the nation. And though it didn't get the movie star treatment like the sedans of the day, its presence was felt everywhere, from construction sites to rural farms to the back alleys of growing urban neighborhoods. And Chevrolet? They took notes. The success of the one-ton didn't just result in sales. It opened the floodgates for decades of truck innovation. It taught the company that Americans didn't just want cars that looked good. They wanted vehicles that could do good, that could carry weight, endure abuse, and stand tall at the end of the day. That revelation would shape the future of Chevrolet's truck line, leading to generations of vehicles that became not just transportation, but lifelines for millions. Today, looking back more than a century later, it's easy to overlook the 1918 Chevy 1-ton amidst the flashier milestones of automotive history. But make no mistake, this was one of the pillars on which modern American trucking was built. Without it, the idea of the pickup truck as we know it might have been delayed, redirected, or even derailed. And that makes the 1-ton more than just a piece of history, it makes it a legend. It's a reminder that sometimes, the vehicles that change the world don't do it with speed or style, but with strength, resilience, and purpose. The Chevy 1-ton didn't just transport goods, it transported an entire nation into a new age of mobility and industry. So when you think about the Roaring Twenties, don't just imagine the glittering jazz clubs and booming cities. Think also of the grit behind the glamour, the trucks that hauled the materials to build those skyscrapers, the ones that delivered the whiskey during Prohibition, the ones that fed a growing population by connecting rural farms to hungry urban mouths. Think about the 1918 Chevrolet 1-ton. It may not have worn a tuxedo or sipped champagne, but it was there in the background, making it all possible. It was the truck that didn't just roll, it roared, in its own quiet, powerful way. And as we stand in an age of electric powertrains and autonomous vehicles, it's worth tipping our hats to the workhorse that started it all. A truck with a purpose, a design ahead of its time, and a legacy that continues to echo through every Chevy badge that proudly adorns a tailgate today. This is where the journey began. In the furnace of global conflict, where the fires of World War I reshaped nations and redefined industries, the 1918 Chevrolet 1-ton truck was born, not as an accessory to peace, but as a tool of necessity forged for a world at war. The need was urgent: move troops, haul supplies, carry equipment across battlefields and burgeoning factories alike. America was entering the war late but with tremendous industrial force, and companies like Chevrolet pivoted to support the war effort by providing practical, purpose-built machines. The 1-ton emerged in this high-stakes environment, engineered not for luxury or comfort but for function, reliability, and endurance under pressure. It was designed to get the job done, no matter the conditions: muddy roads, overburdened payloads, grueling distances. While other vehicles crumbled under the chaos of war, the 1-ton dug in its heels and delivered. Beneath its raw steel and no-frills construction lay a bold vision. The 1918 Chevy 1-ton came equipped with a 4-cylinder engine, modest in power by today's standards, but revolutionary for its time. It was simple, robust, and easy to service, an invaluable trait when the nearest mechanic could be miles away. Its body-on-frame architecture allowed it to carry immense weight, and its layout was intentionally open-ended. Chevy provided a rolling chassis, letting users configure the rear section to suit their specific needs. Some installed flatbeds. Others outfitted cargo boxes, water tanks, or even mobile workshops. It was a blank canvas for American ingenuity, equally useful on the battlefield and the home front. Its leaf spring suspension, solid rubber tires, and ironclad drivetrain weren't luxurious, but they were dependable. It was a vehicle of grit, born in war, molded by necessity, and designed to withstand punishment while carrying the dreams of the people who drove it. As the guns fell silent and the world transitioned from wartime intensity to peacetime prosperity, the Chevrolet 1-ton did not fade into obsolescence. Quite the opposite, it found a second wind. America was entering the Roaring Twenties, a period of extraordinary economic growth, social transformation, and industrial expansion. The energy that once fueled the war machine was now redirected to building cities, forging skylines, laying roads, and expanding industries. And right in the thick of it was the 1-ton, now repurposed from war wagon to workhorse of peace. It was the perfect vehicle for a country on the move, adaptable, durable, and ready to roll. With cities booming and consumer markets exploding, businesses needed dependable ways to move products from factories to storefronts, from ports to towns, from farms to cities. The Chevrolet 1-ton became the artery of this commerce, pumping goods through the veins of a growing economy, Bakers used it to deliver fresh bread at dawn. Lumberyards stacked it high with timber for new homes. Manufacturers relied on it to transport steel, textiles, and machinery. Across the country, the one-ton was quietly enabling a commercial renaissance. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was essential. Without trucks like the one-ton, the economic miracle of the 1920s might have sputtered. Every bag of cement, every crate of apples, every toolbox full of nails that arrived on time was a quiet tribute to this unassuming truck. But the impact of the one-ton wasn't just measured in tonnage or mileage. It was also found in the steel skeletons of skyscrapers and the freshly paved roads snaking through towns and cities. The 1920s saw a construction explosion. Bridges, office buildings, highways, and homes sprang up like wildfire. The one-ton played a pivotal role in this transformation, often unseen but always essential. It carried bricks to the masons, beams to the welders, and blueprints to the architects. It was there on the ground level of progress, not in the headlines but in the handshakes and the hard hats. This truck wasn't just part of the economy, it was infrastructure in motion. By the end of the 1920s, the Chevrolet one-ton had become more than just a tool. It had earned a place in American culture, cementing its legacy as a vehicle that didn't just serve, it shaped. Before the one-ton, trucks were an afterthought in the automotive world, modified passenger cars not built for real labor. After the one-ton, the script had flipped. Chevy had shown that a truck could be built from the ground up to meet the needs of the working world. And with that, they didn't just build a vehicle, they helped build an industry. The ripple effect was enormous. Competitors took notice, and the American pickup truck was born as a distinct category. That cultural shift gave rise to what we now know as truck culture, a way of life built around practicality, toughness, and pride in work. From ranchers to electricians, contractors to delivery drivers, the truck became a badge of identity. It all started with a one-ton. Its legacy was not just defined by what it carried but by what it represented: self-reliance, progress, and the American spirit. In garages across the country, mechanics found in the one-ton a reliable partner. In fields and warehouses, it was an extension of the workers' hands. And in cities, it helped bridge the gap between the urban elite and the rural heartbeat of the nation. It's difficult to overstate just how profound the one-ton's influence was. It didn't just carry loads, it carried an entire movement forward. And while technology evolved and newer, more advanced trucks entered the fray, the core philosophy remained rooted in what the 1918 one-ton started: build it strong, build it smart, and let it work. Today, more than a century later, the one-ton still captures the imagination of enthusiasts, collectors, and historians. Restored versions sit proudly in private garages, displayed like pieces of rolling Americana. At vintage car shows, it's not uncommon to see a 1918 Chevrolet one-ton drawing quiet admiration, its squared-off stance, spoked wheels, and simple utility a stark contrast to the sleek, computerized behemoths of modern times. And yet, despite its age, there's something timeless about it. Something that speaks to the enduring appeal of authenticity. In an era of digital dashboards and electric motors, the raw, mechanical honesty of the one-ton is refreshing. It reminds us that sometimes the simplest tools are the most powerful. And that real progress isn't always flashy. It's sturdy, dependable, and built to last. Beyond its presence in museums and collections, the story of the Chevrolet one-ton continues to inspire the trucks of today. Every Silverado, every heavy-duty hauler, every mid-size pickup owes something to that original 1918 workhorse. Its design philosophy, function first, strength always, lives on in suspension systems, chassis architecture, and even brand identity. Chevrolet has become synonymous with durability, and that reputation was forged not just in marketing labs, but in the muddy trails and gravel roads that the one-ton once conquered. When modern trucks boast towing capacity, payload strength, and real-world utility, they're speaking the language that the one-ton helped invent. It didn't just set the bar, it built it. For collectors, owning a one-ton today is more than just a hobby, it's a connection to a story. It's a chance to touch a piece of history, to feel the weight of time in the metal and the soul of a century in the sound of its engine. These trucks are more than mechanical, they're emotional. They represent fathers and grandfathers who labored in the fields, factory workers who believed in better tomorrows, and innovators who refused to accept limitations. In the Chevy 1-ton, we find not just a machine, but a mirror of America's evolution. And in doing so, we're reminded that the road to progress is often paved not in glory, but in sweat, steel, and quiet determination. So, what can we say in the end about this humble yet heroic truck? That it changed the world? Absolutely. That it defined an era? Without question. But most importantly, that it deserves to be remembered, not as a relic, but as a pioneer. The Chevrolet 1-ton wasn't just a vehicle. It was a statement. It said that America was ready to work harder, go further, and dream bigger. It carried the hopes of farmers, the tools of builders, the goods of merchants, and the future of an entire nation. It was built not to impress, but to endure. And it did both. As we close this chapter in automotive history, let us raise a metaphorical wrench to the 1918 Chevrolet 1-ton. A true workhorse. A quiet legend. A symbol of progress forged in steel. And as we move forward into an electric, digital, and autonomous future, may we never forget where the journey began, on the dusty roads of America, with a truck that simply refused to quit. That's the spirit of the 1-ton. That's the spirit of Chevrolet. And that's the spirit of a country that knows the value of hard work, resilience, and unshakable belief in what's possible. If you've ever driven a Chevy, worked with your hands, or built something from the ground up, the 1-ton story is your story too. So share this with someone who knows what it means to earn their keep, to fix what's broken, to haul the heavy load and smile at the end of a long day. Let us know your thoughts, your stories, your memories, because the 1-ton isn't just history. It's heritage. Like, comment, and follow the channel for more journeys through the past, and help us keep these stories alive. Because in every great machine, there's a greater story waiting to be told. And the 1-ton? It told one of the greatest. Throughout the Roaring '20s, the 1-ton became a silent hero of industry. With a frame built for strength and an engine tuned for endurance, it laid the groundwork for the modern truck. It carried timber, bricks, tools, milk, and machinery, anything a growing economy demanded. It was there for the skyscrapers going up in New York and for the highways being paved across the Midwest. It served the ambitious, the hardworking, and the bold. In doing so, it helped build not just infrastructure but identity, American identity. Because when people think of the classic American dream, it often involves grit, determination, and the kind of resolve that comes on 4 sturdy wheels. The 1-ton had all of that and more. But the 1-ton's impact wasn't just physical, it was cultural. It introduced a way of thinking. Trucks were no longer just utility, they became symbols. Symbols of independence, strength, and purpose. This was the spark that ignited what we now call American truck culture. The 1-ton proved that a truck could be more than a tool. It could be part of your story, your livelihood, your pride. And that spirit, tough, reliable, and ready for anything, would influence every generation of trucks that followed. Fast forward more than a century, and the 1918 Chevrolet 1-ton still holds its ground, not as a relic, but as a legend. Collectors seek it, not just for its rarity, but for its significance. Restorers bring it back to life to feel connected to an era when things were built with purpose and built to last. And for truck enthusiasts, it's the origin story, where it all began. Every Silverado, every Colorado, every heavy-duty beast rolling off Chevrolet's lines today owes a quiet thank you to that first 1-ton. Because the DNA is still there. The work ethic, the utility, the dependability. In the grand story of American automotive history, the 1918 1-ton isn't just a chapter. It's the opening line of a brand new book. It's a reminder that innovation often starts with necessity but becomes great through heart and determination. It's proof that when the right vehicle meets the right moment in time, history is made. So if this story moved you, if you felt the grit of old dirt roads or saw the sun rising over a field of wheat with a 1-ton ready to haul, don't let the conversation stop here. Share this video with fellow truck lovers, history buffs, and anyone who appreciates the incredible journey of American engineering. Hit that like button, follow our channel, and help us keep these stories alive. Because this isn't just about a truck, it's about the spirit of a nation, told through steel, sweat, and the sound of a reliable engine turning over for another day's work. The 1918 Chevrolet 1-ton, America's first purpose-built Chevy truck. A true workhorse. A lasting legacy. And one hell of a way to start a century.